for me. My sanctuary is just being out in the open, being with nature, just spending time outside, getting to explore. Being in the Flint Hills here, we felt that we were just so connected to the land. That's one of my favorite parts. You're watching things die and then watching them grow again. You have this new life coming, and it's just a new opportunity to do what you love every year. My name's Jacqueline Leffler from Americus, Kansas. I work with my dad hand in hand every day. We grow corn, soybeans, and wheat. And then we also raise feeder and stocker cattle, and we retain those into fat cattle.
There's nothing like farming with family. There's no comparison. There's a different love. Tensions might run high, but at the end of the day, it just feels great that it was family that did it. Jacqueline's my oldest daughter. She had a long journey in coming back here to the farm.
My freshman year of high school, I was just a small town kid in Americus, Kansas. I won state in shot put and discus, and I ended up being an 8-time state champion. I was offered a full ride scholarship at Kansas State University. I dove headfirst into pre-med. Around my junior year, I started to get more and more connected with people at the college that were involved in agriculture. I never thought this would happen, but my love for agriculture ended up winning out.
She came home and expressed her interest of coming back. That's a proud moment. But at the same time, I'm sitting there trying to tell her the ups and downs of it. I said, it's not going to be an easy life.
I ended up saying, hey, I just want to be here on the farm full time and help preserve that legacy that had already been put out before me here.
She was determined to come in, so I opened my eyes and my ears and my arms and let her in, and it's been the best thing that happened because there's nothing like family.
My grandpa entrusted my dad early on so that he could do what he wanted to do in life, and allowed my dad to step in earlier than most people to start making those big calls. You know, I think that's what my dad has done for me, is making sure I got involved within the industry really early, making sure that I have something of my own.
Our problem was technology was moving so fast, it was hard to keep up with. When my daughter came back in with us, I kind of turned in the technology to her, and she's done marvelous.
In 2018, we implemented FieldView. To us, that was truly groundbreaking. We had a really bad drought, and so we were able to watch the hybrids that were the drought guard actually kept their green longer. For us, that made a huge difference because we appraised at 0 bushels an acre that year. That drought guard really paid off and gave us more tonnage. We chopped every single acre for silage, which turned into cattle feed. That helped us make a little bit of a silver lining.
It is making small differences, and all them small differences after a while does add up.
We're constantly learning and growing and teaching ourselves new things. If you stay stagnant, you're never going to continue to succeed, and then you're not going to have this anymore.
My granddad and my dad, they came in 1941.
We started out with approximately 100 acres, just over the hill, been increasing ever since. We got a total close to 4,000 acres. But times have changed considerable, and times will change again.
I always look back at the land that we had. Each place has got its own little spatial history to it.
So right here, we're in the Fruitland Township. This is the real historic part of the community before we actually had our town of Americus. We have 3 generations that are buried here. This is something more than just a cemetery for us. It's a true connection to the land because it truly is in the middle of our operation. You know, these were some great people that came before us, and it allows us to continue everything that they helped us build. I think it's something that almost turns into a time capsule. You know, there's a set of pens that I can go and look at and be like, I made those pens with my grandpa. And I don't think everybody's that fortunate to have those type of memories that I get to have every day. That's pretty special. Leffler Farms to me is like super unique in the fact that we're actually growing the corn, we're growing the hay, we're growing the wheat to make the straw. We're then feeding all of those products right into our cattle, and then I start marketing all of those fat cattle direct to consumer. And so we literally have this closed loop that ends up feeding our own community. There's nothing more special than knowing that your friend, your community members not only knows where their food is coming from, but they know the person that raised it. They understand the love that went into that steak in their freezer.
Our wheels are always spinning of which way we're going to go. We're going to have a shortage of chemicals, shortage of fuel. We really don't know what to expect at times, but we're happy with what we end up doing, getting up, working every day.
You just kind of had to overcome your fear, know that you could do it, chase the dream. One of my favorite parts of the year is right after we burn. Every year, you get this clean slate. Everything just turns black. In the Flint Hills, the best way to keep that native grass fresh and rejuvenated every year is by fire. It's just a fresh sense of a new beginning and where that year could take you. It can be pretty intense, pretty stressful. Every day in agriculture, we're having the battle of going against a controlled chaos. It's something that I think you have to be able to do or you're always going to be frustrated. That flexibility that we have to have is what makes us successful. Spring on the farm. That's always just been one of the best times of the year. And then the next thing you know, a week later, you have these little sprigs of grass popping up all throughout the countryside. You always have a plan in mind when you go into planting season. We're finishing up feeding cattle in our feedlot and getting ready to ship those cattle out to grass in the Flint Hills. And then on the farm, we're constantly shuffling seed, getting ready for planting, and just making sure all of that gets done in a timely fashion, but also when the weather allows us to do so.
We're probably about half done with getting corn ground prepped. And if everything goes right, then mid-morning tomorrow, we'll start in on planting. I feel pretty hopeful it'll work out for right now with the weather patterns we're going through. And I think by weekend, though, we're in for a pretty good shot of rain.
If the weather's just not working in your favor, you know, you have to be flexible. You got to make sure that you're always in communication with your seed dealer and making sure that that flow of communication is there and working well.
How are we doing? Pretty good. Yourself?
Okay.
Wanted to plant one field just to see if it's going to work. It's not ideal, but it's time.
Yeah.
At some point, it's got to go.
Well, that's what I told Jack the other day. So we can't wait forever.
Lately, the weather pattern hasn't been 100% like normal. Usually, we would be 100% done planting corn by now, but we haven't even put a seed in the ground. I think I'm just looking forward to getting the planter rolling for one, and then testing out the variable rate scripts that I had the opportunity to write on FieldView. That's the water hole, so I lowered the population. I mean, technically from here to here will be a good test strip too.
Yeah, just see
Right
the
in the
variability
middle.
through the field with going through all the zones there.
So
Should work.
fingers crossed. Planting is the most important part. That's where your income essentially starts, is when that seed hits the soil. You have to 100% refresh your mindset. That first day is always a little bit jittery, trying to work out all the little kinks that you thought you had worked out in the shop. Some things are gonna go wrong and you just have to be okay with it. It's every year, because you know you've done all this planning so that you can get that planter into the field and end up making a beautiful crop at the end of the day. Our family has always been super involved within our community, whether that's sitting on boards or helping host community events. Right now, we're headed to pick up milk from a dairy that I made a connection with through Kansas Farm Bureau. I reached out for this event and said, hey, we would love to have our local 4th grade kids be able to taste test all the different flavors of milk. We're interacting with the youth within our community to let them see the broad spectrum of agriculture. Thank you guys for being here. We're super excited to see you. We're gonna get started with some sheep shearing and wool spinning. You don't just have to be a farmer. You could be a seedsman, you could be in technology. That array of job opportunity is so big now. That's why it's so important that we get it in front of them and get it in front of them early.
Now, this is one of the nice times of the year when you're looking around and seeing the trees budding out, grass greening up, and everything starting to take shape for another fun year of seeing if we get everything to grow.
When I was first starting back at the farm, I always felt like I was missing a ton of knowledge. You know, I was constantly trying to learn and grow and figure things out. Agriculture is something that's always going to evolve, always going to change. Knowing that that growing period and that learning period is never going to stop is what's the most exciting for me. You know, there's so much more to come. We don't know what it looks like yet, but I'm super excited to find out. Our farm is bigger than us. It's literally touching everything. The shirt that you're wearing, the food that you're eating, the tires on your car. Agriculture touches every single thing.
Growing up, we always had the motto, ag is the backbone of the world. Watching a seed grow, there's a story and a half to be told just looking what's inside that plant. It all starts right here. There's a lot of different steps getting it from my wheat field out there, my corn field, my bean field, to your table.
We're in an area where we get a double crop. That means we get to put soybeans after that wheat crop that we just took off. Fingers crossed we'll be able to get some soybeans put in here in the next couple days, but time will kind of tell on whether or not that's just wishful thinking or actually gonna happen.
Right now, every minute counts.
We're approaching that hard stop date, and we're sitting here with acres unplanted. It's kind of up in the air right now. We came in out of the wintertime, out of a really bad drought, and then we just went into full force rain, rain, rain. You can see all the combine ruts where we had to mud out the wheat to get it out, but it was better than losing test weight, which is ultimately profitability. Sometimes you just gotta bite the bullet and go.
You can't control it, so you just kind of go with the flow, do the best you can, and hope next year we're still here.
My favorite summertime job is just running pastures, driving through the Flint Hills. There's just a stillness to everything. Getting to see the cattle just speckled over the countryside. We're just taking mineral out, making sure that the cattle are getting all of the nutrients that they need while they're out on grass, making sure we're taking really good care of the land. This pasture's been in my family for generations. I think I'm the 4th generation that'll be on this piece of land. Right now, the location that we're at is the old farmstead. So it would have been my great-grandparents' house, and it's where I currently live. Pretty cool to be able to preserve it, but then get to raise a really good crop every year off of it, too. We're utilizing FieldView when we're scouting the crops that are already planted, looking at the ears that are developing, making sure everything tasseled good, checking out some of the red areas that the satellite imagery is showing, where maybe we didn't get a good stand or maybe it drowned out because of the weather. Instead of just wandering around a 90-acre cornfield trying to find what's wrong, FieldView gives us the map of the puzzle as we're trying to put the pieces together on what we can do better. For us, it's been a game changer just to make us more efficient. You know, growing up, I couldn't figure out why my dad was such a perfectionist. The older I get, the more I realize I'm exactly the same. And now that I work by him side by side, I'm like, oh, I totally got that.
Grew up doing farming all my life. Really never had no desire to do anything else. It just kind of in my bloodline, I guess. I've always enjoyed family. It's just neat to have part of your own blood there sharing with you. When we're all 4 together, that special feel and special bond, wouldn't change it for nothing.
We were actually cutting out the test plot. I was waiting on Landon to get to the field because he was going to hang out for the day. He showed up with flowers and a ring and proposed. And so then we delivered a semi-load of corn before we could call everybody because I had work to do. I have a huge pond behind my house that I've just always loved. We'll do the ceremony out there with really close friends and family.
I knew pretty early on that I thought she was the one, but I think it took a little more time.
2 people that are, you know, running and operating family businesses is tough.
My family business, we were on a truck line in Topeka.
He's gonna have to commute because I told him on the first date, you know, I was never moving.
The commute will be a challenge, but that's okay because I'm used to driving fast.
He races his dragster, and he's got brothers and sisters and nieces and nephews that all race on the weekends with him. He's had a really good year. He won the regional divisional. They're gearing up to head to Vegas here soon for nationals, have the eye on some pretty good prize money and the bigger trophies.
When I get moved down here and, you know, I want to help her chase her dreams and goals. I think God answered my prayers. It was meant to be.
I just love the early mornings. It's so nice and cool. That weather pattern is just slowly progressing into fall. The crops are all maturing. The changing of the leaves on the trees. It's kind of that year coming into a full circle. Yeah, so it doesn't really look like we're gonna be harvesting today. Rain fell early morning. Today, I think we're gonna end up building fence and setting fence posts at the wedding site. Get the wheat going and start conquering some office work that we've been putting off. Helped the wheat a lot just because it needed to rain. This summer, the rain shut off and we didn't get near what we needed to be able to get the yields that we were looking at. and hoping for. But we were still fortunate enough to have a crop to harvest, and so we're just trying to count our blessings. We had a pretty big storm roll through here and knock out a bunch of our soybean acres. We had hail, about golf ball size, dumped anywhere between 3 to 5 inches of rain in about an hour period, and so still recovering from that. Through here is where the hailstorm went through the worst. So we've been trying to get those fields harvested first. The whole plant actually matured quicker than it should have. Still salvageable. We'll be able to run the combine through it and try to make the most of the situation. I think every generation hopes and dreams that there's going to be a next generation after them on their family farm.
Well, I just always tagged along with my granddad and my dad and feeding cattle and running tractors.
We used to feed the cattle with horses, and then the tractor, and then with the truck, and then we got a feed truck. The equipment getting bigger all the time. They can't get much bigger because we can't get down the road.
To actually get to grow up and have memories and experience from not just 1, not 2, but 3 generations before me, that it's something that not a lot of people can say that they get to do.
I think she's been getting a pretty good education now. She don't have her hands full. Most of our family farms are gone. Now this one is still holding up.
Oh, the weather keeps changing all the time. The wind's picked up, the sun's out bright, ground's dry here, so I think we're gonna be able to roll here on these beans just pretty quick.
It's kind of hard to imagine where agriculture is going to be, even within the next 5 or 10 years. It's progressed so much just in my lifetime, let alone my dad and grandpa's. It's kind of hard to even fathom what it could look like in the future. Right now, I'm just basically watching my dad on remote view from the semi. I'm pleasantly surprised to see the yield up in that 28 area when you have a field that's been hailed on and didn't have much rain. We had a corn plot that's been harvested. Channel did nudge out all the competitors by just a few bushels. But when you have commodity prices like we've had this year, those few bushels really matter. Can't really dispute it when it's the data that's right there within that app and showing exactly what's happening in the field. I can watch the yield, the moisture, see if we need 1 or 2 more trucks to finish out this field.
When you're farming with family, there's not a way to describe the true feeling inside of you. As far as I know, they still want me around, so we're gonna carry on and see what the future brings and kind of roll with the punches.
Honestly, my dad and grandpa, they've encouraged me, taken time to teach me along the way. And to me, that means the world. That's what gives me the confidence that I can take over this operation when it's my turn to fully take the reins. If I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it with all my heart, all my mind, and all my soul.